What is up, folks at home? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to go an in-depth video on all of the basic rigs for fishing. We're talking Texas rigs, weightless rigs. We're going to show you how to tie them, what baits we throw, a lot of underwater footage today, fun stuff. Let's dive right in. Alright guys, we're going to start off with the unweighted Texas rig. This rig is universal. All you need is a extra wide gap EWG hook. This is the number 4 size right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bait, here's a Zoom Super Fluke, and I'm going to rig this Texas rig style. So I'm going to go through the nose, and then I'm going to take that hook out the belly side about 1/4 of an inch into the bait, just like that. I'm going to run that bait all the way up the shank of the hook and then place it right there so that that bait is held onto that nose point. Then the next part, I'm going to run my thumb up to where that hook should go, perfectly straight in the bait, punch it through the backside right there, and right there you have a weightless Texas rig. This bait can be rigged with a Senko. It can be rigged with basically any soft plastic bait. It is universal. It does a really good job for us in cover and structure, bringing it through. To make this a weighted rig, all you do is simply add a bullet weight on the front of the rig. The weighted Texas rig, I like to rig with a bead on it. It's called a brass and glass rig. There are various reasons why I like to put a bead on my Texas rig. One, it provides noise to an otherwise quiet rig. And here you see the Berkeley Gilly on the underwater footage. I like that that bead adds noise to it. You see here, you do the Texas rig the same on that bait right there. But what that bead also does, the added benefit of the bead, is the simple fact that it's going to protect your knot. I'm a big fan of fishing the Texas rig unpegged, meaning that the weight is free sliding. I feel like I get more bites that way. Even in thick vegetation, I'm going to get more bites that way. The only time that I'm not going to do that is in punching. That's a whole nother situation. Up next, we have the free rig, and the free rig is simply taking a cylinder weight and putting it on your line free sliding. It functions almost like a Texas rig, but it is slightly different in its fall. You can see here on the underwater that weight tends to separate out. This bait is better on longer, deeper falls. So in 10, 12, 14 feet of water, I'm going to fish the free rig over the Texas rig in certain situations. But a very simple rig to tie, you simply tie a cylinder weight on there. Next up, we have the Tokyo rig. Now, the Tokyo rig is a hook with a welded ring, a metal arm keeper, and what you're going to do is add whatever weight you want onto that metal dropper arm. I like to put a bead on there, once again, for the added sound. This rig was built to fish in heavy cover, but also keep the lure up off the bottom. As you see in the underwater here, it keeps that lure out and off of the bottom muck. The other way that you can rig it, you can make that dropper arm shorter and heavier cover. You can add heavier weight to punch through things, but this is your general Tokyo rig. I like to fish this when there's bottom vegetation or muck, and the longer the arm, in my opinion, the better, because it keeps the bait higher off the deck. One way that you can fish swim baits is on a Tokyo rig. You can rig it and simply drag this through. It'll keep the swim bait off the bottom, but it will keep that bait a bottom contact bait. Just another great way to run that rig. The dropper arm size can vary depending on what the fish want. Next up, my personal favorite bait, the drop shot. Now, the drop shot is used to keep a bait at a static level. I like to run drop shot leaders between 12 and 18 inches most of the time. I shortened it up for the video so you could see it. The preferred way to rig a drop shot for me is nose hooking. By nose hooking that bait, you get a lot more action on the bait, and you get a more natural presentation that fish are more willing to eat. Plus, you get no problems hooking up with that bait nose hooked. Those fish will inhale that worm all the way. Remember that you want your leader to not be super short, because most of the time when you're fishing a drop shot, you want it to hover in front of those fish's face that are suspended. So here's how we tie a drop shot. I'm showing you on a Bubba shot hook here. It's a number 3 extra wide gap. Basically, you're going to run that line through the eyelet of the hook so the hook is facing up. Then you're going to make a loop right by where the hook is on the line. Then you're going to take that hook and simply twist it through that loop 6 times. Now, what you're doing here is you're creating a knot on the top and the bottom of the eyelet hook, so it's going to hold that hook straight. I'm doing it with an extra wide gap hook here because one of my rigs that I love to fish the most is a Bubba rig, which is just an upsized drop shot. As you tighten this down, you're going to have to worm that hook through those things so it doesn't tie up on that eyelet. And what you want to do is get that eyelet super straight before you tighten it down all the way. And what it does is it rigs up a perfectly vertical straight hook once you tighten it down. It allows you to also fish a drop shot through thick, nasty cover. I fish northern natural lakes, which are full of grass and vegetation frequently. The Bubba shot is your best friend. I prefer cylinder weights in grass, pyramid weights in rock. It's just one of those things that I've learned through years. I like to open up the hook eyelets on those weights so that they don't fall off when you're fishing smallmouth bass and those fish fight a lot. Those weights just clipped on your line will fall off, so I like to tie them on there. Here's how you rig this, Bubba shot right here. We got the Rattleworm 4.5, great bait to rig on a drop shot. Same out the belly, up the back, and then you want to make sure that your baits are straight. One of the biggest ways that you're going to hurt your bite is if you don't rig that soft plastic perfectly straight. Take the extra time, make sure that that bait is rigged properly on there. Next up, you have another classic Neko rig, and the Neko rig is built on the availability of these Neko weights, or pyramid weights, if you will. Basically what they are cylinder weights that are pointed, and then they have a ridge on them to keep them pegged in the bait. And what you want to do for Neko rigging is you want to find long, slender baits. So that's the Quiver 6.5 worm by Missile Baits right there. Here's a Zoom worm. What you're going to do is insert that pyramid weight into the head of the worm. And you want to make sure to get this weight all the way inside of the bait so it doesn't fall out. You can lose a lot of Neko weights if you leave them hanging out. So I want to make sure that that bait is covered up right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a number 1 wacky hook, if you will, and I'm going to move about 1 inch to 1.25 inches up the bait, and then I'm going to hook that face of the hook facing up. And I like it facing up because it's more weedless in that variety. And then simply you drag this bait along, and it has bottom contact, but the tail stays up vertically. It's a great presentation for pressured fish, a great way to get bit. Now, here is your other variation of hook. You have your J hook, your standard straight hook, a flipping hook, if you will. A lot of people make mistakes when they're rigging flipping hooks because they rig them with a bend in their lure, and that really affects lure action. So we're going to go through the nose, and we're going to take less of a bite on the lure for a flipping hook, because what we want to do is we're going to put that up there, and then we want to rig this bait straight. Now, most people put a bend in their lure, which does not aid to being weedless, but also gives the lure an unnatural fall. So when people rig that lure up, it looks just like that. See that bend in there? We don't want that. That lure is going to fall wonky, and it's going to downsize the amount of bites you get. Plus, that hook's going to punch through, and you're going to get less bites. So what you want to do is pinch a little bit extra on that lure, a little bit farther than you would for, that EWG hook. And what you're going to do is slide that hook vertically into that plastic backing so you get a little bit straighter of a rig. And then you're going to push that hook back into the bait, and it's going to run a lot better and more true for you. Just like that. Super simple way to rig it. Next up, you have the Ned rig here, which is simply putting a small bait and threading it onto a jig head. This is a great way to catch fish, one of the most popular rigs in bass fishing right now. We hope you learned a lot, guys. Rigging things properly can take time, but it is going to upsize the bass you catch and the number of bites that you get if your plastics are functioning perfectly. Make sure you're choosing the right hook for the right application. If you guys like what's happening on the channel right now, give us a like, subscribe, let us know in the comment section what you want to see in the future. Hit those Omnia links, buy those baits, let us know what's up. Thanks.